Well, let's bring in Fawaz Gerges. He's a professor of international relations at the London School of Economics. Welcome to you, Professor. The latest comments that we're seeing now, and I want to start with what Hamas has said. So Hamas has pointed out what seem to be fairly factual issues. The lack of humanitarian aid getting in. We know from our correspondent, people don't even have the tents that they were promised as part of the deal, as I understand. So many tents, so many shelters were supposed to be brought in. They said that's not happening. They've also said that people are still being shot and killed. So, I mean, they seem on the face of it fair. What do you make of the fact that they've come out and said this? Because it does seem to have put some kind of doubt over where the ceasefire deal goes now.
Well, I mean, I think what really Hamas wants is basically for the deal to be respected by both sides. Hamas is not saying that it's not going to really abide by the deal. Hamas has been saying for the past few days that Israel has not really been allowing certain particular humanitarian aid in terms of blankets, in terms of materials for the refugees, for the in terms of really medicine. Hamas is not really asking for the sky. It's asking for Israel to respect its commitments under the terms of the ceasefire. In fact, the state of Qatar has also been complaining to Israel publicly that Israel has not really been allowing certain important humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. I mean, it's winter, it's painful, it's freezing. You have refugees who have been drowned with water. They have no heating system. They have no medicine. They have no blankets. So we're talking about really urgent humanitarian assistance for the Palestinians. My take on it is that Israel is trying to postpone the delivery of certain materials to Gaza because it does not really want the returnees to have any kind of relatively stable life. It's trying to really basically prolong the inevitable and make sure that Gaza remains unlivable because that's exactly what it has done in the past 15 months.
Now, to be fair to Israel, I'm not aware of an official response except that they have pushed forward a cabinet meeting, so that it's obviously going to be at the top of their agenda, which is taking place, as we understand, right now. But it has seemed rattled the cage of Donald Trump, the biggest sponsor of Israel, who has responded by coming back with aggression. I would interpret as a threat that if you don't hand over the hostages as agreed, and in fact he's upped the ante, if you don't hand over all of the hostages, not just the 3 we expected, if you don't hand them all over by Saturday, all hell will break loose. Do you take him seriously with that threat? Is he literally threatening an escalation of things and an ending of the ceasefire, or is it just bluster, an attempt to frighten Hamas?
If you ask me, what is the most significant threat to the ceasefire? What's the most significant threat of preventing this temporary ceasefire into becoming a permanent ceasefire? It's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is unhinged. His bluster, his idea to basically ethnic cleanse Gaza, to displace 2 million people. What he has done is to give a green light to the Netanyahu extremist coalition to resume the war. He has really, in a way, thrown a grenade into a tinderbox. That's Gaza. So what you have now is that Benjamin Netanyahu has a green light to resume the war and to blame Gaza, Hamas, for the resumption of his war. So regardless of whether Donald Trump means what he says, and we don't know, who knows? I mean, Donald Trump, that's vintage Donald Trump. It's bluster, incomprehensible, crazed ideas. But the reality is what Donald Trump has been saying, what Donald Trump has been peddling, the idea of displacing 2 million people. It's not only a war crime, an international crime against humanity, but it's allowing Netanyahu and his extremist coalition to basically resume the war when and if they decide to do so. And that's really what we're seeing now in Gaza. My fear, I hope I am wrong, my fear is that even the first phase will not survive unless basically the pressure, the internal pressure within Israel really convinces Netanyahu and his coalition to abide by the terms of the ceasefire.
One of the things that Donald Trump said recently that caused so much offence in many parts of the world was the suggestion that Palestinians just leave Gaza, just leave, and we'll take over, we'll turn it into a resort. And he said that they should go to neighbouring countries, Jordan and Egypt. Now, King Abdullah of Jordan is in Washington, D.C. today to speak to President Trump. And from what the information we've seen on the White House website, he's only been scheduled in for around half an hour, which suggests there's not going to be a conversation about this. The suggestion is, the implication, that Donald Trump is just going to deliver an ultimatum to him. How do you think that is likely to go down with the King of Jordan?
Well, I mean, he made it very clear yesterday, as you know. He said that he might cut foreign aid to both Egypt and Jordan. Jordan receives $1.4 billion in aid, in annual aid from the United States, and Egypt receives about $1.3 billion. So Donald Trump is using pressure. Donald Trump is using hard power in order to really force the King of Jordan and the Egyptian president to stand down, to accept the displacement of 2 million people. I think what Donald Trump does, he undermines and underestimates what the King of Jordan and the Egyptian president will do. They cannot afford to take 2 million Palestinians into their homes. This really threatens the very survival of Jordan. For Jordan, this is really an existential threat. Even if Jordan loses the $1.4 billion in annual aid from the United States, this is much easier to weather the cut of the American aid than to accept taking 1 million Palestinians, because this really would put, tremendous pressure on the social makeup structure of Jordan, because you have more than half of the population of Jordan are made of the Palestinians. And keep in mind here, the far-right extremist settlers in Israel believe that Jordan is the alternative state for Palestinians. They don't really believe there's a need for Palestine because Jordan is it. So any decision by the king to accept more Palestinians would basically reinforce the far-right coalition that Jordan is it. Why do you need a Palestinian state? And for Egypt, this could be really a black swan. This could really be the straw that breaks the backbone of social and political stability in Egypt. So what Donald Trump does not really realize, he's undermining the stability and security of America's allies. He's providing more ammunition for America's rivals like China. He is fueling extremism in the region. He's really pouring gasoline on the raging fire in the region. And the reason why he's doing what he's doing, because he's unhinged. There are no real gods. There are no checks and balances. None of his advisors dares to tell him the truth. So in a way, if you ask me about really what are we talking about? We're talking about a lawless world. We're talking about the law of the jungle. Donald Trump is behaving like an emperor, the Roman emperor, the new American emperor, and he's using his hard power in order to get what he wants. But I think he's going to fail. He's going to fail because the Palestinians will never leave Gaza. He's going to fail because neither Jordan nor Egypt will accept the ultimatum from Donald Trump. He's going to fail because Israel has failed in the past 15 months to ethnically cleanse Gaza after one of the most brutal wars in modern history.
Yeah, I think the history books are going to write a lot about what we've witnessed in this conflict. But if you just take it on what we've witnessed, which is, I think it's 48,000 plus people killed in Gaza. They gave their lives and people still refused to leave. It was clear they think this is their homeland and they will not be forced out of it no matter what the cost is. So when Donald Trump comes out with his idea that we're going to let people leave, as if it was never an option before, we're going to let you leave and we're going to take care of this mess that's been left behind. We're going to rebuild it, we're going to renovate it, turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. Do you think he realizes how deeply offensive that is to parts of the world?
I don't think so. And I don't think he cares. You're talking about an irrational man, with all due respect. He's irrational, he's chaotic, he looks at the world through the lens of business and real estate, he does not really realize the difference between a real estate and a homeland. A homeland. The Palestinians want their homeland. The Palestinians want a nation of their own. The Palestinians want an independent nation. Donald Trump looks at the world, whether he's talking about the United States or Greenland or Panama or Canada, all through the lens of business. And here, let me add one particular point about Donald Trump. The reality is, the Palestinians are not going to leave, but what he could do and what he will do is to basically prevent the reconstruction of Gaza. That's what we are seeing. You were talking to your correspondent earlier in Gaza about the plight of 2 million Palestinians who have been displaced multiple times. What the United States and Israel will try to do is to starve the Palestinians, is to make life so impossible in Gaza. And what you're going to see in the next few weeks, the Trump administration will allow Israel to annex some parts of the West Bank. So the overarching strategy of Donald Trump, who belongs really to the far right, and the far right in Israel, is to hammer a deadly nail in the coffin of a Palestinian state. This is the goal. The goal is to basically end the quest of Palestinians for a state of their own. By annexing the rest of the occupied West Bank, East Jerusalem has been annexed, and now to force the 2 million Palestinians out of their Gaza. And this is it. That's what the far right in Israel and the evangelicals, the fanatical evangelicals in the United States want to do. But at the end of the day, let's keep in mind, the Palestinians have agency. The Palestinians have been struggling for 100 years to have a home of their own. The United States, despite all its power, it failed. It failed in Afghanistan. It failed in Iraq. It's not about what Donald Trump wants. It's about what the world wants. It's about what the international community wants. It's about what the Palestinians want. It's about what the Arab and the Muslim states could do in the face of an unhinged American emperor who would like dictate terms to the world. And I really mean it. He's unhinged. He's using American hard power in order to basically have his way as a businessman, as a real estate businessman, and dismissing the aspirations and the hopes of the Palestinians, who basically are asking for a mini tiny state of their own on what used to be historical Palestine.
Fawaz, thank you so much for coming on, being our guest. Fawaz Gerges is a professor of international relations at the London School of Economics.